Welcome to our webinar this evening entitled Raising Generations of Healthy Kids. Tonight's webinar is part of the Aga Khan Education Board for Canada webinar series and will explore healthy lifestyle habits in children and youth and chronic disease prevention for the future. With this webinar, we hope that parents will learn practical tips on supporting their children in adopting healthy behaviors related to balanced nutrition, family meal structure, physical activity, and screen time. I am one of the presenters this evening. My name is Dr. Shazhan Amed, and I would also like to acknowledge Shaistha Zaheeruddin for offering her time and expertise to this talk. I would also like to thank Nazia Sohani, our webinar coordinator, for helping to set up this evening's webinar, and Farzana Thawer for helping with the coordination of questions. I'm going to now introduce first myself. That's a picture of me so you can see what I look like. I'm a pediatric endocrinologist at BC Children's Hospital in Vancouver, Canada, as well as a clinical associate professor at the University of British Columbia. I am the founder and lead initiative called Live 5210 that works with all sectors of a community to create environments that support kids in making healthy choices with the goal of preventing childhood obesity and type 2 diabetes. I would like to also introduce Shaistha Zaheeruddin, who is a registered dietitian and lifestyle interventionist at Modest Nutrition in Milton, Ontario. Accredited with the College of Dietitians of Ontario and Commission of Dietetic Registration, Shaistha completed her Master's of Nutrition and Food Science and a dietetics degree from Wayne State University in Michigan, USA. Shaistha has been practicing as a community dietitian for over 6 years with a focus on women's health and parent empowerment for picky eating children in Toronto. She also serves as a learning series presenter for Diabetes Canada. Shaistha is speaking today with us all the way from Dubai, where I understand it is very early in the morning. So thank you and welcome, Shaistha. So I will start first talking about the Live 5210 initiative and childhood obesity. So by the end of my part of this talk, I would like to leave all of you with 4 key messages. The first is that childhood obesity will negatively affect the future health of our children. The second is that it is all of our responsibility to support kids in making healthy choices. The third, that we are all role models for our children. And fourth, that sharing and supporting Live 5210 in our homes and our broader community will help us raise a healthier generation of kids. So let's talk about the problem. 1 in 3 Canadian children are overweight or obese in this country. That's 1.6 million kids. It is a lot of kids. And although we don't have similar data within our Ismaili community, we can probably extrapolate the same data to Ismaili children. 50% of obese children will become obese adults. So unhealthy weights do track into adulthood. But it's important to remember that it's not about body size or weight, but rather it's about health. Obesity increases the risk of serious chronic diseases like type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and even cancer has now been linked to unhealthy lifestyles. And so the prevention of obesity should be a priority for all of us. For the first time ever, kids today might live shorter lifespans than their parents and grandparents. And this is a really, really profound statement. And it's an important statement because we have spent so many years improving, our ability to treat infectious diseases like infections using antibiotics and preventing them using immunizations. And in many first world countries, making sure that our water is clean. So we've done all of these things over the last 50 to 100 years, and we've been able to actually increase our lifespan. However, chronic diseases might result in actually a decrease in our lifespans, which is a very, very tragic outcome of unhealthy lifestyles. So let me first talk about how childhood obesity will negatively affect the future health of our children. I'm sure many of you are aware of this disease, type 2 diabetes. And what we refer to it as now is an adult's disease in children. And the reason for that is because 30 years ago, type 2 diabetes was actually unheard of in children. There were 0 cases in the world of this disease in children. But today, we are seeing it more and more often in children and youth. Here's some data that I'm showing you from British Columbia, from some research that I've done, which demonstrates to you time along this axis and the number of cases of type 2 diabetes in people under 20 years of age along this axis. And if you just look at this middle line here, which shows all people, all individuals under 20 years of age, you can see that it's increasing over time. And if you look at the line in girls, you can see that it's actually increasing even faster in young girls. And that's worrisome because these are girls entering their childbearing years. And we know that diabetes during pregnancy increases risk for diabetes in that offspring or in that child, even before they're born. And so prevention is really important. What we know about type 2 diabetes in children from a study that I did about 10 years ago in Canada, where we looked at every kid with a diagnosis of diabetes, a new diagnosis, we found that 95% of these kids were obese, meaning that it was the single most important risk factor. So if we think about how there was 0 cases 30 years ago, is it obesity that's driving this disease? And the answer is probably yes. But what was even more worrisome was that 40% of these kids at diagnosis of their type 2 diabetes already had one complication, like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, kidney disease, at an average age of only 13.5 years. And we know from research around the world that diabetes complications develop more quickly in kids as compared to adults, that the treatments we have are less effective, and that mortality or death in this population when they're diagnosed with diabetes at a younger age, between 15 and 30 years of age, that they're more likely to die earlier. So the important thing to remember, however, is that childhood obesity and type 2 diabetes in youth is preventable. And to do that, to prevent this disease, it really is all of our responsibility in helping kids make healthy choices. And the reason for that is because there is always the individual, their genetics, their knowledge and awareness of what is healthy, but around that individual, especially children, is a family environment, the feeding practices, whether parents engage in active lifestyles and healthy eating. And around the whole family is the community environment. Is the community safe? Is it easy to find healthy foods? Are healthy foods affordable? Also, household socioeconomic status plays into this. Our built environment, are there playgrounds in our environment? Are there sidewalks where kids can walk? And of course, the policies that exist, advertising to children, food advertising to children, influence how we make choices. And so really, when we think about childhood obesity, we need to think about acting across multiple settings. We can't solve this problem just in the healthcare setting or just in the schools. And so when I talk about multiple settings specific to my audience today, I really talk about looking at how we can take a smiley community approach across all child and youth programs to make the healthy choice the easy choice for kids. But in order to do that, we need to understand our population, and we need to understand the unique challenges and opportunities and the unique context of our families that are new to families that have lower socioeconomic status. To understand that allows us to then provide solutions that directly meet the needs of our families. And so we need to build these things in partnership with parents, children, and youth. So 5210 is a message that we use in British Columbia across multiple communities. We're in 12 communities now. It's a consistent, clear, evidence-based message. Enjoy at least 5 or more fruits and vegetables every day. Power down no more than 2 hours of recreational screen time per day. This does not include homework. Play actively for at least 1 hour per day, and choose healthy, zero sugary drinks. The reason why this message has resonated in the province of BC and even around the world is that it's easy to remember. It's evidence-based, meaning that there's actually good studies to show that these 4 behaviors are important in preventing childhood obesity. It's used across the world. There's lots of different programs that use it. It's something that kids and families can see consistently across multiple sectors of a community or in the context of the smiley community. they can see it in BUI, they can see it in the camps, they can see it all sorts of places. And it provides clear daily goals for kids and a framework for leaders in the community to support these behaviors. My key point number 3 is that we are all role models for our children. So think about this question: how can you create an environment in your home that supports your children in achieving the goals of Live 5210? So one of the ways to start thinking about this is to look at a tool that we've developed called the Healthy Habits Questionnaire. And this is a questionnaire that we actually use in a lot of clinics and family physician offices so that doctors are able to identify very quickly with families where are some areas that we could maybe start working on. For example, how many servings of fruits and vegetables per day does your child eat? How many hours per day does your child spend in front of the screen when they're not doing homework? How many days per week is your child physically active for at least 60 minutes? How many sugar-sweetened beverages do they take per day? Looking at how often you eat at fast food or takeout or restaurants. How many times per week does your child eat breakfast? And how many times per week do you eat together as a family? We know that all of these behaviors contribute to unhealthy weights. So here's some tips, and I'm not going to go through each one, but these were included as a handout that you can download in the handout section. But looking at how do we now implement this in our daily life, enjoying 5 or more vegetables and fruits a day, there's lots of different ways to do this. Try beginning your dinner with a salad or raw vegetables. I always find keeping raw vegetables in the fridge on the shelf that's easy for your kids to grab as a snack, having it ready for them to eat, and getting the whole family involved in preparing them. Screen time is a place that I have a lot of families come to me in my clinic who really struggle with this. And I think it's about, turning off the TV during family meals, keeping board games, books, and puzzles that can be on hand as an alternative to TV, placing screen time with physical activity, and scheduling outdoor time each day. Playing actively at least 1 hour a day can be challenging, but what I suggest to set an example and live an active lifestyle yourself as parents, and this allows your children to see how important that is. And lots of tips there for zero sugary drinks. This isn't, I think, a quick win that families can achieve, where you just take juice and other sugary drinks out of your home. It's important to recognize that even juice, where it says, it's real fruit juice, or they're packed with sugar and probably have about 9 tablespoons of sugar per bottle of juice or per can of pop. So keeping in mind how much sugar is in these drinks, it's better just to eat the orange rather than drink the orange juice, is sort of my recommendation. So let me guess what you're thinking at this point. A lot of people know this. A lot of parents say to me, I know, I get it. I know I need to live 5210 every day, but it's not easy. I know it's not easy. I'm a parent too. I understand. Often we have to use the TV as a babysitter so we can get things done in our home, get the laundry done, get food on the table. I get it. It is very hard. But it's important to remember that it always starts with us as parents. We are the role models for our children. They look up to us and they look at what we do. So be a role model. Leave smartphones and tablets out of your main living area, and watch TV or use tablets when your child is away or asleep. Turn off all screens during family meal times. Make this about having family time and talking to your kids. Play actively with your kids. Choose healthy foods and eat them with your kids. If they see you eating them, they will eat them. And don't drink sugary drinks. I can't tell you how many of my patients say, oh, well, I say, well, just take the sugary drinks out of the house. And they say, well, we like to drink them. Parents saying that. Well, you know what? They're not good for you either. So just take them out, and it will be a good step for the whole family towards making a healthier choice. Parenting 101 is an important part of being able to teach your kids to be healthy. And I tell my patients sometimes it's about tough love. Use a timer to track your kids' screen time. And once they hit that limit, less than 2 hours for recreational screen time, that's the time to turn it off, set boundaries. Again, this does not include homework, but it does include recreation, video games, all that stuff that kids, YouTube videos, all that stuff that kids are doing. Keep TVs and other screens out of kids' bedrooms. There's very good research to show that having screens in the bedroom adversely affects sleep, and sleep is so important for kids' general health. And poor sleep has been linked to unhealthy childhood weight and chronic disease. So sleep is a very important health behavior that you need to remember. Don't buy sugary drinks and unhealthy snacks, and also sugary cereals are a really big one. Set policies and rules in your home and reward your kids when they follow the rules, and set consequences when they don't. And this is what I call tough love. Teach your kids to become ambassadors for Live 5210. I always sort of compare it to the recycling movement. Kids learned about recycling. They learned about how important it is to protect our environment. And they started to come home from school and say, Mom and Dad, we need to recycle. And that's how parents got on the bandwagon of recycling. Similarly, if our kids become ambassadors of this message, they're going to come home and say, Mom, Dad, you shouldn't be drinking pop. It's not good for you. I mean, make them believe and understand how important this is. Track your progress as a family. We have these goal trackers, which are available on our website to download for free. And you can track and set goals and put this on your fridge and say, okay, who's meeting these goals? It teaches them to set goals and track their daily progress, and you can personalize them. So for example, if your child is only eating one vegetable and fruit a day, one serving, then set your goal as 2 or 3. Make sure they're realistic. Don't expect them to move from 1 to 5 right away. That sets them up for failure, and that can be very discouraging. With my patients, I often have them set the goals with me. We do collaborative goal setting, allowing them to decide, giving the child their own agency to decide how they want to proceed or how they want to set goals, how they want to move towards living healthier. Stay tuned for an app. We're just in the middle of developing a Live 5210 app that will support parents and children as well as their healthcare providers to set collaborative goals and then track their goals, and they get rewards for their goals. And so this is a very exciting initiative that we've started, and we hope to have that app available next year. My last point is sharing and supporting Live 5210 will help raise a generation of healthier kids. Be a champion for this message. Share it in your own communities and your own networks, whether it be at your workplace, at your child's school, at BUI and other child and youth programs in our Smiley community. If you are a leader or even a parent, look at the practices and policies and environments where your kids learn and play. Our healthy choice is the easy choice. I have to say that I'm often disappointed to see so much juice at many of our Smiley events rather than water and tea and other healthier choices. Participate in the implementation of new initiatives that support kids in choosing healthy. It really is up to us to take action as parents and say, we demand a healthier environment for our kids. We demand that healthy choices become easier for our kids. So please go to our website, and there's lots of resources there, live5210.ca. I just want to acknowledge that this work, I don't do it alone. I've got lots of collaborators and lots of funding providers. I'm now going to move on and I'll give the mic to Shaistha, who's going to now dig a little bit deeper into the nutrition, which I find is often a very big challenge for families, picky eaters, and what should we be what is good nutrition and how do we achieve that? So handing it over to Shaistha.
Hello, thank you so much, Dr. Shazhan, for the amazing talk. And I'm really excited to talk to you guys a little bit about nutrition and how nutrition and food can play a role in helping prevent chronic diseases for the future, especially diseases that are creeping up in our generation and which are prevalent in our generation and which might creep up into our children's generation, which include diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, cancers. So nutrition plays a role in both prevention and management. And as you guys already know, prevention is always better than cure. 1 second, sorry. Okay, so the first thing that we can do as parents is create a balanced meal. So basically that means eating foods from different food groups. And I'll get into all of that in a few seconds. And then understanding correct portion sizes. Our portion sizes are huge. They're probably 2 or 3 times bigger than what they used to be 20 years ago. And that's sort of probably why there's a lot of childhood obesity, like Dr. Shazhan mentioned. these days. So portions, although they're really important, they're more important for adults than so much for children. And I'll kind of explain that a little bit when I go in details. And other than portions, the types of foods you choose matter. So the types of foods that are healthier are foods that are low in glycemic index. So that basically means that foods that don't raise your blood sugars too high, and also foods that are anti-inflammatory or antioxidants, which are known to prevent a lot of diseases. And other than just eating a balanced meal, the type the portions are important, but also the placement, the timings of your meals are also very important. And I'll talk a little bit about the eating pattern. And last but not least, choosing foods, just making sure that children know there should really not be no food should be considered bad. Although yes, you want to try to avoid sugary drinks as much as you can. But when children, or even us, when we know that something is not allowed, for example, if we are on a diet and we know we're not allowed to have certain food, we want it a lot more. It's much more appetizing to us than if it wasn't restricted. So the first thing is try to make any food that was restricted, for example, an ice cream, a candy that your child always wants, but you try not to give them. Just make it a bit common so they're not excessively concerned about having it. So just that's why everything in moderation is fine. Once in a while, having their favorite candy or ice cream is fine, as long as you stick to the 80-20 rule. So 80% of the time you want to be eating healthy, and then 20% of the time it's okay to have foods and indulge a little bit, because if you don't indulge, then that's just another thing that you'll crave. Children will find a way to get those foods, whether it's at school or when you're not around. So it's always good that you make sure your children are eating healthy in front of you, and hopefully when you're not around as well. So getting into what is balanced meal is, I have this on your handouts. This is Canada's food guide. You might have already seen it. So Health Canada divided our foods into different food groups, just because every food group has something unique to offer. And the idea is that we want to eat at least one food from each food group throughout the day, usually a lot more. So the food guide has more details, and you can look at it when this presentation is done. But I'll just give you a little bit of a description about what I suggest when it comes to meals. So the main food groups, like you guys already know, fruits and vegetables, then grains, that's your rice, your breads, your pastas, and then dairy products, so milk, yogurt, cheese, cottage cheese. And the last food group is protein. So that would be your meats, your chicken, your fish, legumes, lentils, tofu, eggs, all of that. Nuts and seeds also comes under that protein group. So when it comes to meals, try to have at least 3 or 4 of the food groups available. So one from each food group. If you have that at the table at each meal, that's a pretty good place to be at. So think of how you can figure out at least getting one fruit or vegetable, a grain, some dairy, and some protein at every meal. And when it comes to snacks, at least 2 food groups should be available, at least from the 4. Now, when you are shopping and you go to the store and trying to find something that's healthy, obviously you want to look at the food label. So when you do, you want to focus mostly on the right side here. Look at the percentage daily value, and that's bold and it has percentage sign on it. And the numbers you're looking for are 5 and 15. So anything that you want more of, which is almost always high fiber or high vitamin C, calcium, all of that, you want the numbers to be close to 15% or more. So when it comes to fiber, always look for something that's close to 15. It's sometimes quite hard to find, but if you're getting to 8, if you're getting to 12, you're still doing better than 0, but still try to come to 15. And things that you want to avoid, things like fat, saturated fat, trans fat, sodium, all of that should be below 5%. So that's where you know you're doing a good job. And this is actually a great experiment. Maybe do it with your children. Go shopping with your children when you do grocery shopping, and let them do, make it fun, make it like a scavenger hunt sort of thing, where you actually tell them to pick out foods or look at different brands and compare their food labels. And just tell them, look for something that has 15% or as close to 15 as possible. So that helps, especially when you're choosing cereals. This comes in handy, maybe breads. Also, ask them to look for the ones that have highest fiber and lowest sugar. And maybe you do get the food and you might not like the taste immediately, and that's fine. That's also a good opportunity to start experimenting. So maybe get smaller portions of those new brands, and if your child doesn't like the taste, then you can just ask them that next time we go shopping, we'll look for another brand which has same nutrients but something with a different flavor. And that's also fun, because then children are involved and they actually will be excited about trying these things. Also, other things when it comes to grains and choosing healthy grains, we want to look for foods that are low in glycemic index. So glycemic index is basically a ranking of foods based on how they raise blood sugar levels. So you want to look for something that is low in glycemic index, which means that they don't raise blood sugar levels that fast after you eat them. So you're looking at the left column here is what you want to get most of. And then the next best thing is medium glycemic index foods that come in the second column here. And the last one, try to avoid as much as possible the high GI foods. And if you notice, all the white breads, the bagels, cornflakes are in the high glycemic index foods. These are foods that we're eating very commonly, and just trying to shift your foods that you make available at home towards the left side, so more medium and more low glycemic index foods. Now, examples of that are brown rice is good, but parboiled rice is better. And oatmeal is good, but oat bran, when it comes to cereals, are better. All brands with psyllium, husks, these are good. Pumpernickel bread, all of these. Sweet potato is better than white potato. So these are basically options. Like I said, 80% of the time, if you are eating from the low and the medium glycemic index foods, that's okay to have 20% of the time, or maybe one meal, it's okay to have something that's high in GI, as long as the rest of the day you're having something with medium GI glycemic index or low glycemic index. Other thing that is quite important is fish. You might have already heard about the benefits of fish. There is countless benefits when it comes to fish. Not just the high vitamin D, which is in foods, which is quite unique because vitamin D is not present in that many foods. Only milk, fish, and eggs have vitamin D in them mostly. So fish is already unique in that it has vitamin D, it has calcium, especially if you're choosing bony fish. And the most amazing thing about fish is that it has omega-3s. Now, there are two types of omega-3s. One that comes from plant sources, so things like flax seeds and walnuts, all of these have, and even omega-3 eggs, these are good. They have omega-3. But the type of omega-3 in fish is different from the ones that you see in the plants. And the fish has EPA and DHA. These are omega-3 fats. First of all, they're known to be anti-inflammatory, so they basically help prevent diseases, but they're also great for brain function. And the types of omega-3s, the EPAs and DHAs from fish, are actually very readily absorbed in our body, and they they work immediately. The omega-3s that you get from plants, there are different types, and they need to go through a converting process before they can function. So our brain is entirely fat, and the nerve cells and all the communication that goes from our brain to every part of our body requires healthy fat to do the function. So that's why we need omega-3, and that's why fish is so important. Um, the types of fish that are good, that have very low mercury in them, are salmon, sardines, mackerel, haddock, trout, even tuna is fine. When you do pick tuna, go for light canned tuna. So basically, tuna that's floating in water, not in oil. The light word is important. And it is recommended to have fish about twice a week, so that two servings a week. So that could be one serving at lunch and one at dinner. So you can just choose one day and make it a fish day. Like I usually say, make Friday fish day, fishy Friday. But when you do choose tuna, and if you're going to eat about two servings or more, then I would rather you avoid albacore tuna, because it does have a little bit of mercury in it. Although having two serving a week is not too much, but if you're going to eat any more than that, then I'd rather you choose tuna that's either bluefin tuna, skipjack tuna, yellowfin. There's so many different types of tuna. Just make sure you look at the tin, look at what it says. Just try to avoid albacore. Okay. And then milk and dairy products, super important, especially for children, but also for adults. In the food guide, you'll notice the serving recommendations for children. So for children from ages 2 to 8, they need at least 2 servings. And from 9 to 18, 3 to 4, because they're going through puberty and they need a lot of calcium. And what's unique in milk and dairy products is that the calcium is easily absorbed. Because there are calcium sources from dark green vegetables, and even almonds and dry fruits have calcium in it, but the calcium in milk is very easily absorbed, and that's sort of why the first food that we're supposed to that we give our children is milk, and that's because of the unique combination of vitamin D, the calcium, the protein that helps absorb the calcium. So one serving is about a cup of milk, or 3/4 cup of yogurt, 3/4 cup of cottage cheese or paneer, and a small matchbox size of cheese. Obviously, when you choose dairy products, try to choose more milk and yogurt, or even kefir, and try to avoid cheese. But cheese is a dairy product, so it is something that you can include. Just make sure the portions are smaller. And the other very important food, this comes under the protein group, is legumes and lentils. Now, legumes are probably the cheapest medicine that's already sitting in your cabinet. These are really high, not just in antioxidants, but in protein, and they're very healthy. They're basically, these days, the recommendation is try to eat legumes or lentils at least 4 days out of the week, if you can. Something I like to recommend is make one meatless day, and that way you are forced to try out different recipes. So legumes could be anything like chickpeas, kidney beans, black-eyed peas, and lentils like dals, all types of dals, everything is allowed. If you do go for tin or canned legumes, that's fine too. Just make sure you rinse it in cold water enough times until all the liquid is gone, and then you can serve it. And legumes and lentils, they both 3/4 cup of them is equal to 1/2 cup of meat, like a chicken or beef. So that means they have the same amount of protein and a lot less fat, and you can have a lot more in portions than meat. So these are really excellent replacements. Also, nuts and seeds are very important. 1/4 cup goes a long way. So everybody, from adults and children, you want to try to have a 1/4 cup at least of nuts every day. And just choose nuts that are low in salt, because then you have too much salt there as well. So nuts and seeds are really important. And yeah, and vegetables, I guess we all know that vegetables are great. When it comes to choosing the types of fruits and vegetables, the brighter the better. So the brighter the color, the better it is. It's actually recommended to get at least one green and one orange fruit or vegetable every single day. And then on top of that, choose a different color. So every single color has something unique to offer. Every color comes, the color from on the fruits and the vegetables come from phytochemicals that actually fight different kinds of diseases. That's why first green and orange are absolutely necessary. Trying to make sure you try to get them, maybe have your children pick them out, ask them, what's your, what green vegetable do you want to eat this week? What orange vegetable or fruit would you like to eat this week? And then choose a unique color for that week. It could be red, it could be purple, whatever it is. That way they're excited about it and you have those available. So at least 3 different colors, green, orange, and then on top of that, one other color is recommended. This I usually recommend to my patients who are going on an anti-inflammatory diet, but I just wanted to throw this in there, that when it comes to green vegetables, there are some better than others. Cruciferous vegetables, so anything that comes from the family of cabbage, so things like cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, bok choy, Brussels sprouts, arugula, kale, all of these are anything, these vegetables have that aftertaste or that sulfury smell when you cook them, but that's actually a good thing. They have cancer fighting properties, and they help prevent colon cancer and many diseases. So if you can get at least one cruciferous vegetables every alternate day, that is really good because it helps in fighting cancer. Now, not only cancer, but many other diseases as well. So experiment with different ones. If you like one or the other, that's fine. And for children, it's all about introduction. A lot of parents just introduce foods, and when your child rejects it, you just decide not to bring it anymore because it's just going to go for waste. But it's really all about exposure. It takes about 20 exposures before your child starts trying that certain food. So just because they said, I don't like this, it's okay, because the more they see it and the more they see you eating it, they'll eventually try them. This slide I wanted to put up here because a lot of people have this question, organic, should you eat organic or not? My answer to that is that generally there's a third-party third-party organization that actually checks the pesticide residues in fruits and vegetables. And so what they do every year, they rank foods based on the pesticide residue. So they usually make a list of dirty dozens, so foods that are in the list of dirty dozens here, like apples and peaches. These are fruits and vegetables that actually absorb the pesticides. So these are the ones that you want to get organic of. But then other foods, like the ones in the Clean 15, they don't absorb any pesticides. So they have no pesticide residues on them. So that's fine if you want to just get regular. That other than, you don't need to get organic for these, and that kind of helps a little bit in budgeting. So that's what I wanted to give you. And this is how a healthy plate looks like. I have a few more slides, maybe 5 more minutes, but I just wanted to show you that this is how a healthy plate should look like. So instead of having our entire plate filled with rice or pasta, you are going to squeeze that portion a little bit and squeeze it into that corner here and make it quarter of your plate. And then your meats or proteins, legumes, all of that should be quarter of your plate, and half of the plate should be vegetables. 2 kinds, like I said, at least one green or orange, and then any other color, fruit or vegetable. And then having a milk on the side and fruit is basically shows you how a balanced meal should look like. Now, I know you guys must be thinking, my child's probably never going to do this. Especially broccoli and fish, that's probably never going to happen. Now, the thing is that I actually really like this quote, and it says that the best way to encourage your child to become the adult you've dreamt of is to actually become the type of adult that you'd like them to be. So it's all about us. It's all on us to eat the way that we want them to eat. And that's really the goal. When it comes to children, they need boundaries. They need healthy boundaries, right? So that's why I have set a few rules. I have 4 rules for you guys before I end today. So one of them is creating and having a structured eating pattern. You know, having a like a fixed structure that your child gets to eat every 3 to 4 hours. This is actually a recommendation. That's the average time it takes for our body to start feeling hungry after a meal. So start with a healthy breakfast within the first hour of waking up, something that's high in fiber and rich in protein, something like from the low glycemic index foods. You could just pick maybe an all bran cereal or go and look at the label and find something that's high in fiber. Protein rich is good because if your cereals, for example, is not rich in protein, first of all, the milk adds protein, but you can always add a little bit of nuts and seeds to it. And then the next meal would be about 3 to 4 hours after. Usually kids are at school, so they usually have a lunch already planned. But right after school, you can have, if dinner is not ready yet, then make sure they have a snack. And the snack is actually going to be a sit-down snack. It's not going to be something that your child's just going to say, okay, I'm hungry, let me see what we have, and just grab something from the fridge or cabinet. No, this should be planned. It's our job as parents to actually keep a structure. So you want to present those 2 food groups or those 3 food groups at snack always. Now, also, a lot of parents ask me that my child's never hungry to actually sit down to eat, and that's why you want to create this other rule that says that they're not allowed to graze other than water. No other food or drink should be had between those different times. So those 3 to 4 hours that you've set out. So you want to set out times. So about maybe 6 small meals that would be. And between those times, they shouldn't be allowed to eat anything that's sitting around. Only at the times that you've set for them is the time when they should be allowed to eat. And those are going to be foods that you are going to provide. So our job as parents is to have food available, not to feed them or not to make them eat healthy foods, but just have healthy foods available to them. That's why when you do have that meals and snacks, they have the opportunity to go for those healthy foods. And obviously try to include in a snack something that your child really wants to have. So something that used to be restrictive, it's okay once in a while, maybe once a week, to have that in one of your snacks so that they have an option to have something healthy versus junk if they want it. But that's just obviously a rare occasion. Also, eat together as a family. Like Dr. Shazhan already said, eating together as a family has countless benefits. I know we are busy, we don't get time. I mean, we are lucky if we get one meal together with a family, but if that's the least you can do, then at least one meal, sit down together with your family, no distraction. If you can do 2, that's great. If you can do more, that's excellent. The more, the better. Have a sit down, non-distraction, no TV around, just you and your family eat together. And that's also a great opportunity for you to role model good behavior. You don't worry that children never listen to you. Worry that they're always watching you. So if you are nitpicky about your fruits and vegetables, or if you are not going to try that broccoli, they'll never try it. So it's all about you doing what you want your children to do. Because no matter what you tell them, you can tell them all you want, that it's healthy and it's good for you. It doesn't matter to them. It's all about how they feel. And if they feel it's good, they'll have it, right? And it's sort of, it reflects from the parents and into the children. And the other rule, I think, is very important. A lot of children sometimes take hours at their meal. You know, some parents actually have these rules that you should not, you should finish your meal before you leave the table, or you should try everything. I don't recommend that. And one of the reasons why I don't actually recommend that is because children are constantly growing at different rates and at different periods in their life, and their appetite will fluctuate according to that. So they might be going through puberty, they might be going through a phase where there's not much growth, and you'll notice that some days your child's eating a lot, and then some days they're not eating much at all. And that's because they have different needs at different times, and we don't know that, but their body knows that, and their body will signal to them that they need certain foods. So if they need calcium, their body will crave calcium, and that's not the type of craving that we get. You know how we get sugar cravings or fat cravings? It's not that strong. It's very subtle. But children, even at the age of 17 and 18, are still able to understand what their body is saying, and it's just a matter of us supporting that. So if your child is sitting on the table for 20 minutes playing with the food, and you know they're not going to eat anymore, it's okay. Allow them to leave the table. That's why you have the other meal in 3 or 4 hours. So just let them know, go ahead, I know you're done eating, that's fine, come back when we have your next meal, and then when you want, you can fill up yourself up. And the last rule I have, and that is that you, like I said, have healthy foods available to them, but don't make their plate for them. Allow your child to make his or her own plate. And that's one, because, like I said, they already know what the body needs. So maybe they don't need so much food. You know, some days you see they're eating too much, and then some days they're not eating much at all. And then some days they eat a lot of certain foods, and then that's their favorite food for like some period of time, and then all of a sudden they start hating the food that they used to love before. So that's all because their body is giving them these signals. So let them serve themselves. What you want to have available, like I said before, have at least one food from each food group. So always try to have milk or yogurt always at the table, maybe bread if that's something that you know your child likes, or can go to. If they don't like a family meal, that's fine. Always have vegetables and some protein always available. And if your child does not like your family meal, they have the option to go for the milk or for whatever it is, and let them choose. And that's how they will experiment, and they'll like the foods, and that's how they'll grow to choose healthy foods. And when they see you eating certain foods, if you start, like for example, after this conversation today, you go home and you start eating healthy, your child will not pick up on that immediately. They'll be very suspicious. They'll think that it's a trick. So that's why you want to keep doing it over and over and over until it's normal and natural for them. Okay, so that's sort of how I wanted to end this conversation. And we have a video that I'm going to share with you, but I also want you to take the time to put your questions in for me and Dr. Shazhan, and we'll take your questions in a few minutes. And so here, have a look at this video, please.
As parents, we think about it all the time. What's my child's life going to be like?
What kind of person will they grow up to be?
We worry about them, their health, safety, self-esteem, everything. We just want them to be happy. It's not whether we do or don't love our children. Of course we love them. It's about choosing how we love our kids. How do we set them on the path to be healthy and happy?
It starts with us.
It has to start with us, because we know how things could be for them. It's all about the choices we make now.
So let's choose to be role models.
And let's ask our leaders to make our communities healthier places to grow up. Let's show our kids why living an active, healthy life is important.
Let's choose to live 5-2-1-0 every day. 5 vegetables and fruits a day. No more than 2 hours of screen time each day. 1 hour of physical activity every day. And 0 sugary drinks. I know what you're thinking.
It's expensive to buy fresh fruit and vegetables.
Kids are picky eaters.
Sometimes you just need a break, so you let them watch TV.
They don't want to go outside in the rain. They just want to play video games.
And there just isn't enough time to play with them.
Trust me. I know.
But if we each do one thing,
Take screens out of their bedrooms.
frozen or canned produce can be cheap, and it's just as healthy.
Kids' taste buds take time to adjust. Try one new food and keep trying.
Play tag or twister or Simon Says with the whole family.
When you need to be inside, dance with your kids to their favorite songs. And ask one leader in your community to make healthy choices easier.
Together, we can create new routines,
Healthy environments.
Vibrant communities.
close your eyes.
Picture your kids living 5210.
What do you see?
They only grow up once.
So if we start by doing one thing differently, one thing that will mean our kids become that much more,
Healthy, active, happy.
just one thing.
Okay,
So now we're going to transition to the next portion of our webinar. First of all, on behalf of the Aga Khan Education Board of Canada, I'd like to thank our two speakers for the informative session today. We've received a lot of questions tonight, and we won't be able to go through all of them, but we are going to try to go through as many as you can, and the presenters will attempt to also answer those separately, those that were not able to have their question heard. So the first question we have for our speakers tonight is, isn't 2 hours of screen time too much? I've heard that the recommendation from the Canadian Pediatric Society is a much lower amount of time than 2 hours. Speakers?
So it's Shazhan here. That's a great question. I think the recommendation for kids 5 to 12 years is less than 2 hours, keeping in mind that for younger children, under 12 months is 0. Sorry, actually under 2 years is 0 for screen time. So we shouldn't be putting any of our kids under 2 in front of screens. So it does vary with age, which might be where some of the confusion is. However, you know, I do hear that from parents, and less than 2 hours is a goal that's evidence-based, but I think if you can do 1 or 0 during the week, that's even better. I mean, it's not, there's no threshold that they must watch screen time. That's more to say, you know, what's the threshold that they should be watching. And so I would say the less the better. But the CPS has age-specific recommendations, which might be where the confusion is.
So this next question might be more specifically for Shaistha. You mentioned that you talked a bit about the fish diet, but can you tell us two things? One, is there a preference for wild versus farmed fish? And on the topic of the diet, can you tell us more specifically what the views are about eggs, specifically for kids at the younger ages, like 5 and 6 years of age? So questions about fish and questions about eggs specifically.
Absolutely. Thank you, Marisa. So yes, generally it's wild fish is better than farmed fish. So if you can get wild caught fish from the Pacific Ocean or the Atlantic Ocean, that's great. Hope that answers that question. And for eggs, eggs are healthy for adults and for kids. Only if they have high cholesterol, then you want to limit it to 4 eggs a week with egg yolk. But without the egg yolk, you can actually have the egg white as many times as you want. So 1 serving of egg is 2 eggs. So they can have 2 eggs at a time.
Thank you. Dr. Ahmed, this might be a question for you. What are the symptoms and warning signs to watch for in children who may be susceptible to diabetes or you think may have diabetes? What should parents be looking for?
So it's Dr. Ahmed here. So typically the symptoms of diabetes in kids will be increased thirst, increased urination out of the ordinary for your child. In a child who was previously toilet trained, who might be wetting the bed again, is a sign. Also, weight loss is a sign. However, in type 2 diabetes, it's a little bit less. The symptoms can often be asymptomatic, I guess is what I'm saying. They can have no symptoms. There are screening guidelines in terms of which kids should be screened for type 2 diabetes. And so your physician should be well aware of those, but typically it's a child who has an unhealthy weight and other risk factors, such as they come from a ethnic group who's at risk, and definitely the South Asian Indian population is an ethnic group at risk. If they have a family history of type 2 diabetes, so a parent or a grandparent who is affected. If there was gestational diabetes during pregnancy is a risk for that would warrant screening child for type 2 diabetes. A physical sign for if someone is developing something called insulin resistance or being resistant to the hormone insulin is the finding. It's usually at the back of the neck in kids, and it almost looks like they have a dirty neck. The actual term or medical term for it is acanthosis nigricans. You don't have to remember it, but often my patients will come and say, oh my gosh, they have a dirty neck and I've been scrubbing at it and it's not going away. And that does go away when the blood sugars are better and the kids have adopted healthier lifestyles. So that's one sign that you can look for. But
Okay.
And I've described some of the symptoms, but often type 2 diabetes is asymptomatic or presents with no symptoms.
Thank you. Another question, which is a very interesting one. Somebody's asking about the fact that their child may take a long time to eat. So is that an issue? What can you do, one, to motivate kids to eat quickly? And should you be motivating them at all? Does the time it take to eat make any difference?
So generally, no, you can allow your child, I mean, if he or she is a slow eater, that's fine. It's just that if they take time eating more than 1 hour, then then everything else is pushed away, because you want them to feed at intervals at every 3 to 4 hours. So if they're going to spend 1 hour at one meal, then that means that the next meal will either, not have you won't have time for it. So that's why I usually recommend 20 to 30 minutes to allow them to spend time. If they're still eating and they're still hungry, that's fine, let them finish it. But if they're just playing around and just killing time, then 20 minutes should be or 30 minutes should be the limit, and then let them go, and then they'll have the next meal. Hope that answers your question.
So I think we're going to have to end with one final question, which I think every parent is going to be interested in, and it's, what can I do specifically to make my children eat more fruits and vegetables?
Dr. Shazhan, do you want to take that over, or?
Sure. I mean, I think making it fun. I love the eating the rainbow concept. So let's have a family challenge where we all, and by all I mean parents too, so role modeling, where we're all going to eat a different color of the rainbow this week. And it's amazing how kids will embrace a game like that, and especially when it's with their parents. It's amazing how much kids want to do things with their parents. So I would say making it fun. And secondly, keep trying. They might refuse it the first time, the second time, the third time. They say up to 20 times it might take to get a child to eat a certain vegetable. So so keep trying, don't give up. And I'll give you an example. My son would not eat broccoli, and finally we turned it into a game where we said, if you eat broccoli, it makes you run faster. And he really, and we said it's a power vegetable, it's a power food. Anything green is a power food. And he eats it now and runs around the house and, really believes that he can run faster, which is great. But making it fun for them.
that's great. Thank you so much. Parents, we've had over a dozen more questions. I don't think we'll be able to go through all of them, but you are able at a later time to send those questions directly to the presenters, and they will try to get back to you. Also, there are some handouts which will be available. There have been some more specific questions about specific slides, and again, you can send those questions to the presenters. There's a link there's a goal tracker as well that's mentioned in the talk. So all of that information is available to you, and you can continue to forward your questions to us, and we will try to get that information to you. I want to thank again our presenters. We've had wonderful feedback, and we really appreciate you taking the time to do this webinar for us. Yali Madad, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.